Okay, so first, of course, I mean, let's say you've hopefully taken refuge and have an attitude of may I become more enlightened and be able to benefit others, benefit myself, benefit others. That's the essence of becoming more enlightened. And so with that thought, then we're discussing the Yamantaka Retreat. So uh, the main, let's say, depends on the group. Here, a second. It depends on the group about sort of the sessions, but basically, I would recommend that there would be one session from something like 5 or 5:30 till about 7:30. An hour, let's see, sessions normally about an hour and a half. Once you get in about 3 or 4 days, you can sort of expand that. And then also, of course, I'll explain a little bit more about how long you can do it. So anyway, the retreat, I would recommend 5 sessions. One session is somewhere between 5 and 6 in the morning. It ends around somewhere around 7:30 or 8. Then you have breakfast till about 9:30. 9:30 till 11 is one session. And then you would possibly do one more session like 11:30 till 1. Again, I'm in Mexico, so we don't eat until 1:30 or 2, so that sort of suits very comfortably. If you guys want to eat at 12 noon or 12:30, then you try to do 3 sessions in the morning. So that would be something like 5 till 6:30 or so. Then maybe you have a bit of a break. Then maybe 7 till 8:30 or something. Then you have breakfast. And then from 10 o'clock till 11:30 or something, that'd be the 3 sessions if you're going to have lunch at 12 noon. Again, those things that you adjust them according to what the group is. And then you have a break and you do whatever other commitments you have or whatever you'd like to do. So somewhere around about 2:30 or 3, then around, let's say 3 till 5:30, you do a 3 to 4:30 or so, you do a session. Then you again have a break, and then maybe like 4:30 till 6, you do a session. That's 5 sessions, and that's what I did, something like that. Now, as I said, once you get into it, you will be able to expand that up to maybe you do 2-hour sessions. Okay, I explained you have to do the long sadhana. I did send a recording of doing the long sadhana up to the mantras anyway. I didn't do the concluding part. Maybe I'll do that again without any commentary, sort of, and refer to it as session 1, session 2, session 3, because each session, well, the first session is the longest. It takes about 40 minutes to do it, and then you can start mantras. The second session takes about 30 minutes to do the recitations, and then you start the mantras. And that applies to then the third, the fourth, and if the fifth one was the last one, then again, the start of it's 30 minutes, but then the ending is a little bit longer because you have to do the concluding prayers. You can abbreviate the long sadhana a little bit. For example, you don't have to do the long auspicious prayers, the long dedication prayers and such. You can do shorter versions of that. Again, that just depends on, well, I'll give you a breakdown of those things more sort of officially on a piece of paper. I think I described earlier that basically, if you're going to do this retreat, will take you, if you do long sessions, it's going to take you 2 weeks. If you do more relaxed sessions and you're sort of putting a little more emphasis on practice, it should be 3 weeks. Okay. If you're doing it really intensively, you can finish it in 10 days, but that's not beneficial. That just means you're just running through it really, really fast, and you're really not getting any benefit from it. So I would recommend sort of shooting at the 2 weeks to 3 weeks sort of length of time for the retreat. So hopefully you guys can all get the time off for that. Okay. And as I said, I think in a previous session, if you did 1 week, then one person's in charge of lunch for 1 day, the next person for another day, the next person for another day. That way, then, you know, each day, one of you has a meal that you prepare so that the other ones can relax. You don't sort of like all get together and sit there and talk and things, you know, you want to be in silence. So, I mean, the best is if you can do silence the whole retreat, you know, other than talking about something that's really important. But if you need to, then at least the morning be definitely in silence, and the afternoon a little bit of conversation. But again, this is you're taking 2 to 3 weeks of your life out. and sitting down and talking about, the role, the war in Ukraine and whatever else might come up is just ridiculous. And why do you, those things you can't control, so focus on the retreat. It's 3 weeks of your life, the cost of doing that retreat, the time you're putting into it. So make it valuable. Retreats are like a pressure cooker. So you do want to sort of really get a good experience. You don't want to just sort of be superficial. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. Okay, so those are the general outlines. I will produce the sadhanas for you with me reciting them. Then, you can play it, and then you're doing it at the right speed, so to speak. So that's good. So those are the general things. Now, the detail of the retreat. You're going to each of your cushions, you put them down. You don't move them for the whole retreat. That's sort of like your personal vortex. That's where every day you're going to sit on that cushion. You're going to do your sessions. So you're sort of creating a vortex of energy in that particular place. That's your personal space. Okay, so that underneath it, you put a swastika. You put the kusha grass, which is sort of pointing inwardly. Again, I'll send you some more some written details on that, or a picture or something like that. I actually have somebody here in Mexico that's going to be starting the Yamantaka Retreat next weekend. So I can take pictures of what we do that. The altar, you have a picture of Yamantaka. Then you have your tormas. You have 5 dharmas. The middle one is the big one. That's Yamantaka. The first 2 are for the preliminary offerings. The last 2 are for the latter offerings, which is basically is in the sadhana. So all you have to think of, you're doing offerings to Yamantaka, it's the middle one. Everything else is the first and last. But again, you don't need to worry so much. I mean, just in the sadhana, it says, for example, you invoke the 15 directional protectors, and from the whom your heart light ray spreads and invites 15 directional protectors, Ja Hum Om Ho, and then you do Om Vajra Om Yamaraj Sadama Yamadora, etc. It's the sadhana. That's the first 2 dharmas. Then the last 2 dharmas come with the concluding prayers and the Vita Kalarupa. Okay. Then again, that's just sort of your mind. So you have the picture of Yamantaka, then you have the tormas. There's 5 of them. Normally, I just do cookies wrapped in saram wrap or something, or for example, a package of cookies which is you didn't open. That's the big one for Yamantaka, and then smaller packages for the 2 on the left and the 2 on the right. Okay, so those cookies are the easiest thing. More professionally, they do torma, but basically the meaning of torma is just food. So cookies is a fine thing. It's, they last for the 2 to 3 weeks without going bad. So that's why you use cookies. Then in front of that, you have 8 offerings. You have 8 going from the left to the right, 8 from the right to the left. The one set from the left to the right are offerings to Yamantaka. The set that's from the right to the left is offerings to you. For example, when you generate yourself as Yamantaka, you make offerings of water for the mouth, water for the feet, perfume, etc. So those are the 2 sets of offerings. Then that's the altar. That's one altar for all of you. You don't have to have individual altars at all. Then your individual places, if you have little tables, that's fine for your Vajra bell and your prayers. If it's sort of really a retreat that's a bit short, then basically you get cardboard boxes and just put them down, and it's got a flat surface, if it's put upside down, and that's your little table. You be practical. You don't need to have anything fancy about this. Okay. And then of course you have your seat. Make your seat comfortable. I think all of you will be sitting cross-legged, but if you do have a problem to sit cross-legged for long periods of time, then you can do all of this sitting in a chair, but your chair is on top of that cushion. So the cushion is your launching pad. It's the thing that's most important. Okay, that's sort of where you're creating that vortex of your energy. Okay, if you need to sit in a chair, you could. And what you can do is, for example, let's say you start your sessions off and you're sitting cross-legged, and then about 3 or 4 days into it, suddenly you have a bad knee or something like that. Well, then all you do is you just have a chair there. And so whether you start the session with your sitting cross-legged, and then you can stand up on your cushion, you don't step off of it. And then you take your chair, if you had a chair sitting beside you, you put it on your cushion and you sit in the chair. But during the whole time, you try not to, or you don't go off your cushion, especially when you're doing the mantras, okay? Now, another little detail is, let's say, for example, you're doing the sadhana, you haven't started the mantras and you have to go and pee. Okay, that's all right. You can get up, you can go and pee, you can come back. As soon as you start your mantras, you cannot go off the cushion. If you do go off the cushion because you have to go and pee, or maybe you have diarrhea or something like that, then that ends the recitations of the mantras for that session. If you did come back and wanted to do it, you have to go all the way back to the start of the sadhana, do all the sadhana up to the mantras, and then start the mantras again. Those are the rules, okay? So you're being serious about yourself, and you're creating a serious environment for yourself, okay? That's the idea behind it. So the cushion, if you want to, you sit cross-legged. You can have cushions behind your bum, under your knees, or whatever. That's all fine. You don't need to. You're not torturing yourself. If you do need to sit in a chair, just have the chair, we'll sit in the chair from the very beginning, or just have it behind you. You stand up, you're still on your cushion, you put your chair on your cushion, you sit on the chair, and away you go again. That's if you needed to, okay? For example, I can't, well, it depends on my where I'm doing the retreat, but when you get older, you can't sit cross-legged as long as you used to, okay? Anyway, so that's the cushion. Okay, so that's that. Now, the thing that you have to understand, and this is really important, is that Yamantaka is part of your deep consciousness. Yamantaka exists there, really. You took the initiation, so the seed was put there for that. But what does that mean? It means that when you're having a difficult time, you can call on that Yamantaka within you to clarify things like life is impermanent. So what's important and not important, I mean, shit happens, but the thing is, so you stay, in other words, you can say you stay immutable. You don't get bugged by things because you're the destroyer of death. So the real meaning of Yamantaka is that you have this state of consciousness which doesn't get bothered easily. Well, in fact, it doesn't get bothered if you have the realization of Yamantaka. You can stay there and you can call on that when you need to. So your retreat is establishing a stronger connection. It's called Leirum, which is suitable for actions, but it's also called Nyempa. These are Tibetan words. Nyempa means getting close. So you're getting close to, well, the wisdom of impermanence. You're getting close, and that's manifested in the aspect of Yamantaka. So you don't make it some sort of like something external. The real meaning of it is your consciousness has great stability because it knows what's important and not important. Now, the aspect, it has meaning, in the sense of it, very wrathful, very powerful. It's blue-black, it's immutable, the color, and then all of the arms represent great capacity. Yamantaka has 34 arms. It's not like he's some sort of weird deity. It represents capacity in dealing with stuff. I mean, if I have a doubt, one of his hands on the right side, it pierces doubt. It has a dagger, which then cuts open the guts of samsara. It has a bow and arrow for the wisdom that penetrates reality. Now, again, as much as you've studied the deity, okay, you can remember these things as you're doing the mantras and such. But the main thing is sort of getting that sort of sense of connection with, I am calling forth Yamantaka within myself, which means a state of stability, a state of being, let's say, not bothered by trivial things, okay? And again, it's still qualified by compassion. It's not like you show Yamantaka to somebody else, like you sort of get wrathful with somebody else. I mean, the person will just avoid you. Rather than that, it's about I have access to that immutable state of consciousness, and that's my practice of Yamantaka. Okay, when you do the retreat, it's very common to have dreams of violence. That's very, very typical. War scenes and such like that. For example, when I did my 3-year retreat, and the beginning part of it, I dream of war scenes, of battles between 2 different groups and stuff like that. And it was quite sort of strange, but okay. And then after some time, all of that disappeared. And so you could say it's a battle between your mundane mind and your more transcendental mind. Okay, anyway, so that's something that you can expect. Okay, so that's sort of the basic concept, and I will send a written thing of the Sadhana, how to break it down, and I will actually try to do a chanting version of it too, which is good because once I've done it, then it's available from now until forever. So that's something to do. And it'll be the first session and then the second. And remember, the second, third, and fourth, and fifth sessions are all the same at the beginning. So they're all nice and easy. Okay, so that's that. Now, just some little bit of meaning for you. When you are in the mandala, that's sort of you being very centered. That's what the meaning of it is. It's like it's a perfect, square, which means that there's perfect symmetry to it. So you are in the very middle of your perfect sense of being, and you are protected because around that then is, then there's a reality source, and then there's the protection, the wheels of protection, and outside of that, then there's the Vajra floor, wall, ceiling, roof, and outside of that is the cemeteries. Okay, so it's all symbolic, and remember that some of you have been with me now for a year and a half. For example, Odysseus and Jonas and such, or Philip. Okay, I said I wanted 3 to 4 years of your life before you start really understanding your Tantra practice. So don't have big expectations. Now, you study, that's good, but still, it'll take you 3 or 4 years to finally go sort of like, oh, I get it now. That's the way it works, because when we're intellectual about it, it's superficial. When you start to do the practice, it goes to a deeper level. And this is an archetype. This is a human archetype. It's not something that's superficial. It's not just some sort of fantasy thing like Mickey Mouse or something like that. This is a very profound archetype, and you're accessing it. So in your practice, it's all about bodhicitta. It's all about voidness. That's the foundation of it. The love and compassion and wisdom. But then that is manifested as Yamantaka, because we sometimes have problems and we just don't have much ability to deal with them. So Yamantaka helps us, give us greater capacity to deal with problems. And if nothing else, just remember that, if you suddenly realize that you're impermanent and death is coming, you start to sort of kick your butt. You get yourself going. If you suddenly were diagnosed that you have cancer, well, shit, that would wake you up a lot, wouldn't it? Well, that's sort of what Yamantaka is to wake you up, make you more conscious, okay? Anyway, so just one thing about when you're doing the visualization, essentially, the biggest thing is your feeling and identification, like, okay, I'm Yamantaka. Okay, and then you can say, okay, I'm in my mandala. Okay, whether you visualize it or not a big deal. If you start to develop, you can, give yourself 4 or 5 years and you'll actually be able to start producing a sensation of I am in my mandala. That's sort of what you want. And then with that sensation might come the colors and the aspects of it. But don't be overly concerned about the details. It's sort of basically, I am centered in my mandala. This represents my psyche, and I am Yamantaka. Okay, so that's the sort of thing. Now, you put everything on the same level, so to speak. So there's you and there's you, the mandala, then the reality sources, then the spoke, the spokes of the wheels that protect you from negative influences and such, and then there's the Vajra wall, and on that level then is also then the cemeteries. So you don't put the cemeteries way down below because it's too crazy to visualize that. You put them up at the same level. Now again, it's your imagination. The cemeteries represent samsara. They represent all the shitty things that happens in the world. So just as the cemetery, like they describe it, is very scary. It's got zombies and monsters and ghosts and demons. Well, that's the Ukraine war right now. It's a horrible thing. God of a horrible thing. That's samsara. That's out there. Okay. But you are becoming enlightened, and outside there's all the craziness, but you're not getting affected by it. You are keeping your personal clarity. Who am I? What am I doing with my life? What's important? What's not important? That's what the Yamantaka practice is. It's your protection of your personal clarity about who I am and what I'm doing. So if you were to, hear some news, or you start thinking about maybe the violence or just the crazy things in the world, that's all out there in the cemeteries. Then you move in, and then you protect, you have the wall, and you have, of course, the fire around that. And then you have the spinning wheels of the protection wheel, and then you're inside the reality source, which is basically your consciousness. I mean, it represents your mind. And then you're inside of that, your mandala, which represents your 5 aggregates. And inside of that, then you as Yamantaka is your consciousness. So it has meaning. But as I said, if you're thinking, gee, John, this is too much for me. Like I said, give me 4 or 5 years of your life. Then you'll say, oh, okay, easy. I got it. Okay, so in regards to just some of the details, Otis asked for a question about the names of things. Okay, basically, again, whether this is purely Hinduism or not, or from India or not, but basically the directions relate to different, for example, entities. So, for example, in front of you would be the entity of the sun and the moon and Brahma and Vishnu. Okay, and then next over here is Agni, the god of fire. That's called the fire spoke. And then here is Yama. This is Yama, the mundane side of it, the death. And then over there's a Yaksha. And behind you, I forget who it is. I can't remember everything. Okay, over here is wind, the god of wind, Vayu. And then there's Ganesh. And then there's Shiva. And then below you is Kali or that like that. So the names of the different spokes and things, they refer to a little bit more of sort of a Indian way of looking at reality. It's not like overly important, it's just names. For example, I mean, we talk about the east and the west and the north and the south, and then we might add a different connotation to it and such. This is no different than that. So getting caught up in those sorts of things is just a distraction. Basically, after some time, you'll sort of, okay, I know what those all are, because you studied for long enough and you've got that down. But it's not a big deal. The more important thing is you and your mandala, and you're centered, your consciousness, all of your psyche is all nicely organized. That's what the meaning of this is. All of those things, a little bit, they're cultural things they're things from other cultures. I mean, just to give you the easy example, and I might have explained this in the time of the initiation, that, for example, red flowers in India were considered bad, because if a local lord or king or somebody decided he wanted to kill you, he sent you a bouquet of red flowers, and that means you're going to be assassinated in a little while. Okay, so in Tibet, who didn't have that culture, they said, oh, red flowers are bad. Well, our culture, red flowers are love. See what I mean? So some things culturally translate, some things don't. So it's important that you just basically focus on the central thing. I am Yamantaka. I am defeating mundane death. I have many capacities. I have great stability. When you think about it, if he's standing on 16 legs, he can't get pushed over very easily. Well, that's the idea of the 16 legs of voidness, of understanding reality. Well, it means he's got great stability. So it's symbolic. Okay, so I have great stability. I am Yamantaka. I have 34 arms because I have great capacity in dealing with all the shitty things that happen in this world. And I am fierce. I am the defeater of mundane death. Okay, so those are the things that are more important to think about. That, and then I am centered. I'm in my mandala. And remember, then, I mean, if you studied a little bit, the front is white. That's Vairocana. That's your formed. Then this side is yellow or golden color. It's the feelings. Back is perceptions. Here is thoughts and such. And in the center is consciousness. You are Yamantaka. That's consciousness. Again, I mean, you don't need to really think about those things. The more important thing is to say, like, I am Yamantaka. I am, I'm working for the benefit of myself and all sentient beings. I'm developing these capacities and such. That's the things you want to think about. But again, if you studied enough over years, then maybe some of the other details can be a little bit meaningful, but not overly so. Okay. So that's then just some commentary on how you create the visualization. You try to put it all on the same level. Granted, everything is in the nature of light with this particular quality. So, for example, I'm in the mandala, then I have certain colors for that, but it's like colored glass. If I were to put my mind through it, I can see then the lotus flower, and then I can see the reality source, and outside of that, I can see the great thing that spins like a gyroscope. that has the 10 wrathful ones. And then outside of that, then again, if I was to look sort of, more intensively, I could see the Vajra wall. Outside of that, then the 5 colors of flame. Outside of that, then the 8 cemeteries. Okay, so it's all in the nature of light energy. Okay, so that's just sort of a review. Now, questions, anything I didn't touch on or something?
I read in your commentary about the long sadhana that you sent us that you received the special mantra of the uncommon protection wheel. Are we allowed to recite it during our retreat?
Yeah, you could. Again, for the first retreat, because there's a lot to do, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But yes, you could recite it 2 or 3 times and then move on in the sadhana. That would be fine. I'll send it to you. I can send it to you, and I'll give it to you again. Maybe the retreat's going to be the end of September, October, isn't it?
At 1st of October, it begins, and it's going to last 1
Well,
month.
then, just prior to that, I'll transmit the mantra, because we don't have everybody for the retreat here right now, so I'll do that. And that's fine. It's not a big thing. It's all Namo Samantha Buddha, Namo Samantha Dharma, Namo Samantha Sangha, Namo Sitya Vitri. Okay, I'll do that later as we get towards the end of September. Okay, so that's that mantra. As I said, if give yourself some time, like a year or two, and then some of these things, you memorize them a little bit, and they become meaningful for you, become powerful. So it is a question of just putting time into it. Okay. The other questions?
I wanted to ask about after the end of the final session, do you have any advice about how to wind down into sleep? I know there's yoga where you dissolve into emptiness as you're sleeping, and then as you're waking up, you imagine that all the dakinis are exhorting you to come and save all sentient beings and things like that. So I wondered if you had any advice about how to enter into that kind of practice after the final session.
Okay. Okay, that's standard. Whether you're doing, that's more that is traditionally as part of the Vajrayogini 11 yogas, but it's also included in the Yamantaka practice, although it's not so clearly identified. So yeah, one is you may find that you don't sleep very well because you're creating a lot of energy, but that'll happen for a few days and then you'll start to calm down. So that's quite possible that you will get a bit of insomnia. Don't bug yourself about it. Just say, okay, I'm not sleeping, relax. One of the best things you can do if you do have too much energy is don't stay lying down. It gets even worse. Sit up. So sit up and lean against the back of your bed, your headboard or whatever it is on the bed, and sit there and then meditate. And you'll find that after a little while, then you'll sort of get tired and you'll fall over and go to sleep again. So that's just in regards if you did have insomnia. Now, if you want to do, it's standard in most of the commentaries that when you finish the last session, of course, try to have a good motivation when you go to sleep. And what I always like to think of is that whoever I meet in my dreams, may I benefit them. That's just a nice way to go to sleep. Okay. And you could possibly become lucid. There's on my YouTube channel, there's a whole thing about becoming lucid in your dreams. That's quite beneficial, actually. If you do start to becoming lucid, it really helps your appreciation of understanding reality and such, and sort of learning how to be more self-confident. But anyway, that's a whole other set of teachings. But the thing is, you might become lucid, but if nothing else, anyway, going to sleep, not being too strict about it, because then you won't go to sleep, but just sort of saying, okay, I'm a nice guy. I benefit whoever I meet my dreams, and then just sort of feel I become consciousness. It's actually interesting if you study a little bit about, it's called lucid dreaming. There's also something called lucid sleep. Now, these are standard practices in Tibetan, in Buddhist Tantra. But nowadays in Stanford University with the Dr. Stephen LaVerge, he's been able to identify them and clarify them, that they both are valid states of consciousness when you're sleeping. Lucid dreaming and lucid sleep. Lucid sleep is you're not dreaming, but you're in a state of consciousness. Your body's asleep, that, but you're just in a state of consciousness and you rest in that. And the big thing is to rest in that. And that's called lucid sleep. So you could attain that, for example, thing, but it's not agitating. So don't think, but it's like, it's not insomnia. It's a state of consciousness. I have to leave it at that. It's like, I mean, if I tried to describe sugar, you know, I mean, well, it's sweet, okay, you know, makes your tongue feel good, you know, or something, you know, that's like, you can't really describe sugar, okay, other than to say that. So the same thing, lucid sleep is that you're not agitated, it's not insomnia, it's a state of consciousness that is clear, lucid, but is peaceful. If you go to lucid dreaming, now you're in a dream, but you're aware that you're dreaming. Okay, so anyway, I'll leave it at that. Okay, so yes, you could do those. And in the morning when you wake up, you know, again, you know, if you have, like, I don't know if you're all, you know, sleeping together, if you're all sleeping in individual rooms, you know, it depends on what the situation. But for example, if you took your cell phone, you could make your alarm sound, for example, you know, let's say a chant or something. I mean, if you did Vajrayogini practice, it could be the mantra Vajrayogini. If you don't do that one, I mean, for example, Yamantaka, I don't know, you could do the root mantra, the Om Yama Raja Sato Meya Yamandoro Naya Nada Yata, like that, something like that. Okay. Or, you know, supreme form, like you wake up to supreme form, supreme and great fury, who works for the benefit of all sentient beings, whatever. So you could have something like that on your cell phone. So when you wake up to that. You don't just wake up thinking, you know, I don't know, whatever. You try to wake up with some sort of continuity of Yamantaka consciousness. Okay. So that, Thomas, that should answer your question a bit. Okay, other questions?
So I'm
Thank you
currently
for
doing.
your,
Sorry. Please go ahead, Jonas.
Jonas.
Thank you. Yes, I have one concern regarding this retreat, that often I have like too much energy in my system, and then I really don't know what to do besides not practice. So I think during this practice this might also happen. So what to do in such a situation?
Practice patience. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. There's two things. One is just having a lot of energy. Okay, but learning how to be peaceful with that, like not sort of saying I've got all this energy, you know, and like that. That means you're putting too much in your body. Just sort of okay, breathing. I'm peaceful and stuff. So maybe you don't sleep, but you can, you know, like maybe you have to sit in a chair, or you know, or you sit in your bed, sitting up in your bed. And you just breathe naturally and sort of just relax in that way. Again, don't agitate yourself. Energy's energy. What you do with it, with your attitude, can make problems, or it can be quite peaceful. Depends on you. So if you just wake up and you've got tons of energy and you're sitting there and say, okay, well, sit up, and you know, then you could just say quietly recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Don't do the Yamantaka mantras, especially the Yama Raja mantra. Is for generating energy, it's for generating chi. So you wouldn't want to do that mantra, but maybe you do Om Mani Padme Hum, because it's compassion, so that's more peaceful, calms you down, you know, just okay. And it's peacefully, it's not like Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, no, it's like may everybody have happiness, cause of happiness. Okay. So like that, that's one thing. Now, when you do retreats, and especially when you're doing a lot of focus in your heart chakra, it can be that you get what's called lung. Is the Tibetan thing, you know, or it's a medical thing. This means too much energy, but it's energy that's in the heart chakra particularly, because that's where you're visualizing all the mantras. And it's like the nerve channels aren't sufficiently capable to handle that much energy. So you start getting pain. So it happens especially for beginners when they haven't really opened up their chakras that well. And you can think of it as like you have the nerve channels in your heart chakra, but they only normally run 110 volts or whatever it would be. In Europe, okay, 220. So suddenly, because you're doing these meditations, it's 440. You know, it's double the electricity, and they can't handle that. So that's where you get this pain. Okay, so if you're doing your mantras and you start finding that you're getting pain, you just open up consciousness. You try to make it bigger. You don't focus in your heart anymore. Okay, and also you can sort of try to make your energy a little bit more calmer, so you don't get totally into like the intensity. Like, I mean, Om Hri Shri Ritri Tanana Hom Pe has got quite a lot of intensity to it. So you want to sort of tone that one down. If you've got pain, now generating energy and having enough capacity to deal with it, that's fine, no problems at all. But if you do start getting pain, especially in the heart, sometimes it can be in the abdomen a little bit, but much more it's in the heart. It means is that your nerve channels aren't sufficiently good to handle all that energy. So that's why you're getting the pain. So that's where you just make your mind big. That's the best way I could say just okay, I'm big, you know, I'm out in the space outside the mandala or something like that. The other thing you would do is you eat well, and go for walks, get exercise and things like that. Those are the things like that. But I wouldn't think it's going to be overly problematic for you guys. I mean, you're all young, healthy males, so you should do just fine. But as I say, if you did end up with a pain in your heart, like someone stuck a knife in and they're twisting it like that, it just means that you're putting too much energy in a nervous system that can't handle that energy. So just make your mind bigger, relax, try to be more peaceful. Even though if you're reciting mantras, you don't put focus on the mantras in your heart, things like that. Okay. So Jonas, 1, practice patience. 2, don't make yourself agitated if you don't sleep at night. 3, possibly sit up, don't lie down. And then do quietly, you know, Tara mantra, Mani Padme Hum, some mantra that's nice and peaceful, and just be relaxed about it. Okay. You know, it is conscious energy. It's not an enemy. It's just how well you deal with it. Okay.
Thank you. I have one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have the urge to say the syllable "te" very loudly, but in a group retreat, this would be very inappropriate.
That's
I
correct.
think, because it might disturb the others. So what should I do in such a situation?
Well, actually, no. I mean, I don't know if you're going to fall asleep, but if somebody does start to fall asleep in the session, you know, you can quietly reach over and just, if they're sitting beside you, you just wake them up. You know, that's something you could do. Now, whether you went, you know, and if you want to, but that'd be a bit dramatic. Okay, so if someone does fall asleep in the session, just slightly wake them up. I mean, that's if they're snoring. If they're not snoring, okay, I mean, then just let them sleep if you want. Okay, but yeah, doing pay out loud in a group retreat, not so good. So okay.
What about the point where we generate as Yamantaka,
Yeah.
and we read that Yamantaka says "pet kara" loudly?
Yes. Well, you are reciting this out loud. So the thing is, I mean, you wouldn't go, you know, I mean, and Yamantaka's very face, he's got 9 faces and hey, you don't need to do it that way. I mean, you read it at a normal voice level. Okay. But
Yeah, I was just asking, what if it comes naturally though? Because it has happened to me that after I have identified as Yamantaka to say it extremely loudly, I almost scared myself.
well, okay, you'll wake everybody up. I mean, there's no, you know, there's no good or bad, you know. So yeah, and I mean, I can agree with you one way that yeah, I mean, when Yamantaka does Pim or Pe Kara, you know, he's calling all the Buddhas to come and be with him. So yeah, it is a very energizing mantra. So if you do it out loud, that's fine, you know. Everybody in the room will wake up, I guess, from their meditation. Other questions, commentaries? Okay, one thing is,
A bunch of,
yes,
sorry.
Jonas.
I have a bunch of questions, but I don't want to take up all of the time. So, and if you want to say something, then sorry, I don't want to intervene.
Okay, if you want to write me, you know, I mean, john.shanneman@gmail.com or John.Buddhist Consulting, whatever you want to do. That just write me the questions and I can answer them, you know, in an email if you wish. The only thing I was going to say is, if don't get weird, okay? I mean, doing retreat isn't about getting weird. Doing retreat is about getting centered, being clear-minded, things like that. So if somebody starts getting weird, just tell them to calm down, you know, I mean, that's not a good sign, you know, like, you know, I mean, for example, you don't see the Dalai Lama do strange things up when he's sitting on the throne, you know, so the same thing, you know, I mean, you don't, great lamas don't do weird things. So if somebody starts getting weird, strange, just tell them to calm down or tell them to go for a walk or I don't know, something like that. You know, that's not a good sign, okay? That means something you're a bit neurotic, okay?
I have a
Thank you.
quick question. So I am currently doing the sleep powa of Amitabha Buddha.
Yeah.
Shall I keep doing it during the retreat, or perhaps I should focus on yoga more related to Yamantaka?
Your choice. When you do retreats in the break time, normally after lunch and before the 3:30 session is when you do your other practices. Okay, so that's like if you're doing Tara practice or a Manipami home or Amitabha Buddha or Medicine Buddha or something. Again, you don't need to do an elaborate practice, but if you have commitments, that in the break time is when you do your commitments. Now, if you're doing this particularly as a sleep yoga, there's no problem. I mean, Amitabha Buddha, Yamantaka, they're all Buddhas. So yeah, if you wanted to continue to do that, that's just fine. Yes, no problem. Now, when you do this retreat, we will have some sessions. Now, whether if you've got internet there, that's good. If not, maybe someone's cell phone. So I will be available like maybe every 5 days to sort of answer questions and such like that. So I'll be available for you guys as you do the retreat. Okay.
It's amazing, thank you. And shall we also do sessions with you online or just Q&A?
I don't think I'll be doing sessions with you because remember, I'm going to be doing Guya Samaja, so I'll be busy. But I won't be so busy that I couldn't spend an hour, you know, talking with you guys as you're in your retreat. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. I have one question about constructing the mandala. When first wind and fire and so forth arise in space, then I don't know if this is correct, but like I equate the wind with like my legs, fire in my navel, like in the end offering, and then I get confused when I start thinking where the rest of the elements fit and all of that. So I don't know what to do with that. Can you maybe elaborate on this if this was clear enough?
Okay, that's when you're doing the inner offering.
No. When we have gone into emptiness and then we are constructing the universe again.
Constructing. Wait, I don't hear the words.
Sorry, the mandala and the universe. We are constructing that first.
No. At that point, no. At that point, that's you just think that there's energy in all the universe. It's not related to your body. Okay, I mean, this is the universe. So, you know, you sort of think in the side of universe. So energy and then fire and then the water and then the earth. And that's nothing related to your body. That's creating a universe for you to be able to do your practice in. Okay, so you can say it's symbolic.
Good, thank you. I don't remember reading about that anywhere, but I started doing it at one point, so I will stop doing that.
Okay.
There is something about that in Chakra but that's different anyway. I was going to ask, related to what Jonas asked about having too much energy. We did have a discussion at one point because we received some instruction from Glenn Mullen on completion stage, and I know Jonas was saying that he didn't really want to do it because he had these experiences of having too much energy, and I think, you know, the argument was put forward, well, maybe if you did some of the Trilcore and some of the maybe just meditating on the Vajra body and, you know, loosening the knots, you know, as one part of it, if that would help with having too much energy, or maybe it would make it worse if you're a little bit uncontrolled. I don't know what you think about that. If it would be therapeutic, or if it might make it worse.
Okay, if you're having too much energy, I think going for a walk, maybe going for a little bit of a run, things like that, like you put the energy to some use. In doing psychic heat, and a true core and those things, yeah, you're creating more energy. It's putting gasoline on a fire. So again, when you have great stability and you've done purification practices of the nervous system and such, then those sorts of exercises are very powerful and they're good, but they're within the context of you've developed a foundation of clean nervous system and such. When you're doing a mantra retreat, you will create a lot of energy, yes, but in this case, you're still sort of in the developmental stage. So I would think if you threw in psychic heat and stuff, it maybe would just be like a lot of gasoline on the fire, and the fire gets way out of control. So not a good idea. But that doesn't mean that down the road that you could do that. You could, yes, absolutely. Okay. Good question. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, think of it like this. Like you're okay. I remember I've given the example as like Guya Samaja is like a Rolls Royce, or Haruka is a Ferrari, Yamantaka is a military tank. Okay, that's the example that you could do with those three deities. Okay, so when you're Yamantaka, you're a big military tank and you've got a lot of power. Okay, so if you then, I mean, with that, then it's like the gas pedal. You don't just sort of put the gas pedal down and just roar. You'll destroy a lot of stuff. So you have to be mindful of like, how much gas am I putting with my with the gas pedal of my military tank. So like that. So sometimes you want to slow it down. Sometimes you want to increase it. That's sort of a good example. So you guys are in the final analysis, you will be the controller of your energy. Right now, maybe it sort of blossoms and suddenly it's there and then suddenly it goes away and you're exhausted. That's because we're not very developed. But as we develop, we get more control of things. Okay, so in the retreat, just think of a gas pedal of it. Am I accelerating too much, or am I not accelerating enough, or what? So that's sort of an example you could give for sort of appreciating what am I doing in this particular retreat at this particular moment. Okay.
Thank you. That's good advice.
Good. Yeah. Okay, now this Friday and Saturday, there will be the initiation of Yamantaka. Of course, if you can participate in Friday and Saturday, that's good. If you can't attend that, try to definitely do Saturday, because that's the actual initiation. Friday is sort of a preliminary, like a rehearsal, and then Saturday is the real thing. Because you're going to be doing the retreat of Yamantaka, it's extremely good. I mean, great. You're really you're getting sort of a nice injection of Yamantaka energy just prior to your retreat. So very, very good. And I'm really proud of you guys all that you're going to do the retreat. Even if if you're not actually doing it in the retreat place, maybe you can't go there, but you're doing it in your own house, that's just fine. Very, very good. I'm really proud of you guys. You're a great bunch of guys. I mean, it's not common to have a whole bunch of enlightened guys. That's special. I mean, if you go to Dharma centers, it's always full of women.
It's a great honor for us, for you to say this for our group. Thank you.
Good.
It's incredible.
Good. Okay, so so if you did have more questions, write them out in an email to me, and I can answer them more slowly, because sometimes maybe you suddenly, after we finish this, you say, oh, I had this, and then, okay, well, just send me an email about it, okay? But try to maybe collect 3 or 4 questions before you send the emails, okay? So I'll be glad to answer them. Try to, I'm going to record, this has been recorded. I'm going to then send it to you, or I'll send it to this to then distribute. It'll be with the video, so then you guys can listen to it. Maybe it'll sort of clarify little questions you have. Okay. Good. Okay, so no one said anything, so let's dedicate really the practice. Our spiritual practice is a lifetime thing. It's not something just for a few years, and so Yamantaka is something to help us remove interferences down the road. Then you can shift over to Heruka, Vajrayogini, or Samaja, whatever you want. But Yamantaka is very, very good to do at the beginning because he removes interferences and he gives you clarity of consciousness. Like, I know what's important and not important. I have death as my benefit, as my supporter, Yamantaka. Okay, so with all of that, we dedicate it for to become more enlightened. And that enlightenment is supposed for the benefit of ourselves and for the benefit of others. Okay, so potentially I'll be seeing you guys all on Friday and Saturday. If not, don't worry. I mean, there will be other times and things. Sometimes stuff happens. Okay, so big hugs. Take very good care. And
Bye, Lama.